Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our fifth presentation of CASA's 2025 virtual conference, Exploring Harvest Safety with WSPS from Road Safety to Resilience. My name is Megan Truxell, and I'm the Director of Development at CASA and will be the moderator for this morning's session. It is so great to see so many of you here for this exciting presentation. Thank you to our conference sponsor, John Deere Canada. It is thanks to them that we are able to offer free registrations for the week. As you might have noticed, microphones and cameras are disabled as we are in webinar mode. I encourage you to share your questions for Kristin and Nicole by using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. We will monitor these questions and answer them later on today. Closed captioning is also available for the conference in 20 languages. This is located by clicking the closed caption button in the control bar at the bottom of the screen. Click it to turn on captions and select the language when prompted. All presentations will be recorded and shared to all registered delegates following the conference. If you require any of the conference presentations translated, please contact myself after the conference. Now, I would like to introduce you to today's speakers, Nicole Sherman and Kristin Hoffman from WSPS. Nicole Sherman is a health and safety consultant at WSPS, where she works with like-minded colleagues to deliver sustainable health and safety solutions in an ever-evolving environment. As a registered kinesiologist with experience in ergonomics, Nicole made what she considers a natural progression to occupational health and safety, obtaining her certificate from Ryerson University. Nicole's area of focus includes healthy workplaces, agricultural sector awareness, session delivery, as well as systems management and general consulting. Engaging with clients and responding to their health and safety needs inspires her to explore new opportunities for innovation and learning. Kristin Hoffman is also a health and safety consultant at WSPS. Kristin brings a passion for agriculture and a strong commitment to health and safety to her role as a consultant. Raised on a farm, she is well-versed in the risks and rewards in agriculture. Kristin is a registered kinesiologist and a health and safety professional, with years of experience in hazard identification, assessment, and implementation of controls for prevention of loss. A dynamic trainer and a committed health and safety champion, collaboration is the hallmark of Kristin's approach to innovative safety solutions. She's since expanded her services into other sectors, supporting breweries, wineries, and other processors and service operators. Welcome to you both. We're so glad to have you here today. And for everyone, there's actually 3 kinesiologists here today because I also took kinesiology in university. So welcome, enjoy. So welcome, ladies, and let's get started. So Kristin, the first question we have today is for you. Rural roads see a big increase in traffic this time of year during harvest. What makes these roads uniquely challenging when farm equipment and passenger vehicles mix?
So we have a couple of significant challenges that we identify related to rural road safety. Farm equipment and vehicles have very big differences in their size and speed. These differences create a bit of a stressor for both our farm equipment operators as well as our other operators on the road. Farm equipment is big and slow. It travels often at 40 kilometers an hour or less. And many of the other vehicles on our roadways are traveling at a much higher speed than that, and often expect to be able to cruise along at that speed while they are on our rural roads. Farm equipment is also big, which can make it difficult not only for the operator, but also the others on the road. Visibility around those large units can present a challenge for that operator coming up on the rear to understand when it is safe or not to make that pass of our farm equipment. Other vehicles on the roads may take risks, even if they do not have clear visibility around our farm equipment, and pull out into that lane and perhaps even meet an oncoming vehicle that is looking to get where they are looking to get to, just as each of us are. So definitely those differences in size and speed present a significant challenge for our farm equipment and other operators on the road. The other is the road itself. There are some challenges in many areas of our provinces across Canada where the road design may have been initially for horse and buggy, and then car and truck, but not necessarily our big farm equipment that is going to make use of the roads, especially at high frequency during harvest. That infrastructure limitation presents a challenge for us as farm equipment operators. Our equipment is often not only big, but is getting bigger year over year as we have progression in technology. Those narrow lanes and shoulders become an issue when we do need to get from one point to another as a farm equipment operator. Oftentimes, if there is a shoulder for us to utilize as a farm equipment operator, it is still not near wide enough, and we would often discourage the use of that shoulder as it may not bear the weight of that heavy equipment that we are going to apply to it. Also, and I will share that in my part of Ontario in just the last while, we have some challenges with overhead hazards. It could be a branch on a tree, but in particular, 2 instances within this harvest season of overhead wires that our farm equipment has made contact with. Now, in some instances, that could be because the equipment is too big for that road. But in some instances, the infrastructure itself ages, droops, if you will, with time. And those wires now become dangerously close and even too low for some of our big equipment. So definitely the equipment itself, but also the road and others who are using the road with us present us with challenges.
For sure, that's like understandable. Like even myself, we've been going to a couple weddings the last few weekends in rural Manitoba where a few guests have been late because of the trying to be safe on the roads and all the extra traffic out there recently. So this is very timely with the questions and like your responses. So we really appreciate it. So I have a bit of a follow-up question for your last question there. So when it comes to preventing collisions, what small changes or habits can make the biggest difference for farmers moving equipment during harvest?
Let us begin with the equipment. And it is so important for us to be sure through inspection and preparation of the equipment before we leave the home, the farm, the field. Be sure that that equipment that is within your control is in its best condition and is going to protect you as an operator. So a few of the points that we want to consider as we inspect and complete that preparation of our equipment. Confirm the load capacity. Do that double check that the power unit you will use, the tractor or otherwise, to tow or carry loads is of adequate capacity for the loads or implements that you are going to apply to it. Specifically, be sure that you will still have control from braking to steering to safely manage that power unit through to its trailed implements or the loads upon it as you're traveling on the road. Use proper attachments, including safety chains, straps, and other methods to ensure that whatever the load is, from large square bales to grain, is going to stay in the place that we have put it on our implements or our power unit itself. Generally, we consider 2 points of attachment between our combination of power unit or trailed implements, so that if one of those attachments were to fail during travel, we have another as a bit of a backup. So do that double check to be sure not only we have those safety chains or otherwise in place, but we've got a couple of them that will serve us with that backup. We want to be sure also that we are using proper lights and reflectors. Be seen, light yourself up as you might in the Christmas or Halloween season on your equipment, no matter the time of year that you are traveling upon the roads. Generally, farm equipment requires a couple of white lights to the front and 1 or more red lights to the rear. Be sure that you are using the colors on the appropriate ends of our equipment also. Most of our tractors and other self-propelled units will have field lights to the rear. Be sure that you turn those off when you head out onto the road. Imagine coming up to a vehicle in your lane from the rear and two white lights are pointed back at you. You might interpret that there is a car traveling the wrong direction when it may simply be the field lights that have been left on from field to road. Of course, if we are big, wide, and long, there may be additional requirements for lights, reflectors, tape along that width or length so that the entire size of our equipment can be seen. Especially when we are turning on and off of our roads, we want it to be not only that power unit that is lit up, but all of the way to the absolute last piece in our combination, so that those who might be coming in either lane toward us have some indication of how big we are and when we are finished with use of the road. Now, the other point about use of the road to consider as farm equipment operators is we do have the right to be on the road, but we do also have to acknowledge others who are on the road have a right too. So generally, we must give up at least half of our lane. Again, coming back to the point of being quite big, that can be tough in some instances. So I will strongly encourage that we plan our route. Take a drive during daylight hours in your regular vehicle, the route that is going to be not only the most efficient, but also the safest for you as a farm equipment operator. How much width do you have? How much height do you have? Consider what you are going to be powering along those roads. Will it fit? And could there become challenges across narrow bridges or areas without shoulders, perhaps? When possible, choose those roads that are relatively low traffic, give you all of the dimension requirements that you need, and where we might have some challenges in achieving all of those features, consider having an assistant along with you when you are traveling on the roads to be sure that you've got eyes on front and rear, to be sure that there is a clear area, especially if you have to travel across some of those narrow roads. A couple of other points to consider related to preparation of your equipment. When we are out on the road, generally, a slow-moving vehicle sign is a requirement on the rearmost piece of our equipment. And I'll recommend to you, as we have implemented in my family, place an SMV on every piece, the power unit as well as all of the implements, because maybe in that trail of gravity boxes or grain buggies, the one that was the last time is now first. We want to be sure that our rearmost equipment has that SMV sign in place. And do a double check that it's clear, visible. We want to be about 500 feet of visibility so that we can get those on the road with us adequate notice that we're traveling a little bit slow. Couple of other thoughts as well. Follow the rules of the road. Beyond that point of providing half of the roadway to the other users, a lot of the basic rules apply to us as farm equipment. Some of those, like stopping at stop signs, right of way, use of traffic signals or hand signals that are available to you as an operator, apply to us. Now, there are some exemptions or applications jurisdiction to jurisdiction that I'll encourage you to refer to as well. Understand the rules of the road for the road that you are going to be traveling on across our provinces within Canada. And consider that likely others on the road may not behave as you might prefer they would when sharing the road with you as a farm equipment operator. Anticipate what could go wrong, expect that car to cut you off or that truck to arrive at the rear of your equipment faster than you would prefer, and be defensive. Control what you have control over, which is quite limited when we consider other operators on the road. Manage your equipment and yourself, as well as your position on the roadway. And one last thought for you is to avoid distraction. And Nicole is going to share some wonderful insights on preparation of you as the operator of farm equipment. That applies when we're on the road as well. So how we mentally prepare for our work, including the high pressure period of harvest, avoid that distraction, which might not be necessarily a handheld device or a video screen in your cab, but could be all of the things on your mind that could take your attention off of the road. It really is a full-time job to operate any type of vehicle. Be sure that your attention is on that job.
Thanks for that. I really like the tip about planning your route. That's so important for everyone, and it's such a great idea and something that can be done ahead of time in preparation for harvest or planting season. So that's great. Like you said, we often think about equipment readiness, but I'd like you to talk a bit more about the operator. So what skills or training do you consider essential for safely driving farm machinery on the public roads?
Such an important point for us to consider. Not only be sure that your equipment is ready for the work, but be sure that our people, our farmers and operators are ready for the work. So some of the basics related to information and training. A piece of equipment that might be a tractor or a truck requires a little bit of knowledge and practice to become competent and safe in our use. In most jurisdictions, including Ontario in particular, there are restrictions in place for operators of farm equipment. As an example, in our jurisdictions, you may refer to the point that operators must be 16 years of age or older. Now, there may not be a requirement for a formal driver's license like you would have for a car or other vehicle on the road, but that does not excuse or remove the need for some knowledge and practice to become competent as a user. So for those on farm who are imparting their wisdom to the next tractor operator, share those experiences. Indicate that there will be opportunity for some practice and provide that practice in a relatively safe environment, like on your farm property, before heading out onto the road. Ensure that as an operator, we have adequate understanding of the fixtures and functions of our equipment. How do we not only turn on and off, but what does the braking feel like? When do I need to lock pedals? Where are the switches for my lights and otherwise? Complete that bit of practice in that safe environment, and then providing some supervision for those who are going to head out onto the road. And you might consider beginning with that lower horsepower tractor before we would put an individual up onto a combine or a self-propelled sprayer and heading out onto the road. Part of that training really will be when out on the road as an operator, beginning to understand some of those differences as we've discussed of size and speed, you versus those other vehicles. So definitely having some safe environment practice, but out on the road is going to be an important part of our development. One other point to keep in mind, in some jurisdictions, while we may not require that formal driver's license to operate farm equipment, if that driver's license is under suspension and specifically related to impairment, no individual is permitted to operate farm equipment while under that suspension. So we do not need the license to drive, but if we lose the license, we cannot drive our farm equipment.
That's great. That's good to know. So if anyone's ever wondering about that, make sure you remember those tips from Kristin there. I also really liked how you said you share your experience and provide practice. Like, it's so important that people feel confident in what they're doing before they actually take that next step and move forward with the going on the roads or driving that big machinery, as you mentioned. So one more question for you, Kristin, I think. So harvest demands long hours and split-second decisions. How can farmers balance efficiency with safety when they're under so much pressure to get the crop in?
So I will begin this discussion, and no doubt Nicole will continue this discussion in this session. So as mentioned, as you prepare your equipment, prepare yourself for the work. Acknowledge that this is a high pressure season, which requires us to really prepare understand that pressure and how we can manage our controls to reduce that need for resilience, but certainly acknowledging how important resilience is in this sector. So some of the simple things that become oh so tough during harvest: rest, take breaks when you can, hydration, nutrition. Some of the essentials of life become even more important during this season when the 2 hours we thought we might be becomes 4, 6, 8, and more. So ensure that either by delivery or otherwise, you have that sandwich for a break at some point throughout those many hours of harvest when you're out in the field. Stay connected. Who do you have available, not only for purpose of emergency, whether it is an equipment breakdown, fire, or otherwise, but to check in with at some point throughout the day. Learn to recognize when your stressors have reached that high level. Learn to recognize fatigue in yourself and have tools and strategies available to respond to keep yourself in that healthy and safe position. Be sure that not only you have a means to contact a family member or another individual, but also that that family member or other individual knows around about where you are. And I certainly understand that some blocks of farm may be hundreds, if not more, acres, and knowing precisely where you are on that block may be tough, but some means to know where you are so that if you didn't get home for dinner at the time that individual might expect, and there isn't an answer, they know whereabout you might be. Also, that gives some good indication of that route that you might be taking, so that if there might be some challenges along the way, we can get someone to that location efficiently. To that point, plan for emergency response, not only sharing the information of your location, but having some understanding for yourself in the cab of, well, what is that emergency or address number if I did need to make an emergency call of some type. You might consider as well a first aid kit and fire extinguisher on your equipment when you are so far removed, perhaps from the barn, house, or shop. And I'll encourage you to educate and inform others about some of the challenges, especially related to farm equipment on the road and that high pressure of harvest. Share that information with your family members, encourage them to share that information with their networks, who may be farmers, but may also be neighbors or passers-by when you are out on the road. The more we talk about some of these challenges, what the SMV means, how slow this equipment truly is moving, we hope then for some greater respect and appreciation when we are out on the road for that time and space that we may need.
Thanks for that, Kristin. I really, really like the message that you said, stay connected. I believe it was yesterday in our conference, actually, we had someone talk about how they heard a story of a mom that went out to the field to bring dinner to everyone. She was the only one that noticed her son was actually falling asleep. So she made sure to alert the others that, no, if we're going ending early, this guy needs to go home. Like, it's just everyone needs to work together to really support everyone during this time and be aware of the risks that happen. So I really love that question and your stay connected comment. I also really feel like the last answer you gave really starts to look at the whole package for safety. It's not just the equipment, but mind and body as well. So like on that note, I'd like to switch a bit more to focus from physical and equipment safety to more on resiliency at this busy time, an important time of the year with working with Nicole and asking some questions to Nicole now. So Nicole, from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges to farm resilience during harvest and how can producers prepare for them?
Thanks for that question. Yeah, I think when it comes to we say this term resilience, and you know, a farmer's resilience is definitely tested regularly. Whether it's that unpredictability of our weather, from lack of rainfall in some areas of our nation experiencing drought to having too much rain and now our fields are flooded. Temperatures do seem to be rising, staying warmer for longer periods of the year, all leading to potential crop loss due to those kind of different weather extremes. And that's just one of them, whether it is maybe you've got livestock and you're worried about disease for your herd, or whether it's hydro outages for the barn, and whether your backup generator is going to kick in when it's supposed to. We just had a recent failure with a farmer close in our area here, and the backup didn't turn on for them. So that's a huge stressor for them. We talk about equipment failures, labor shortages, market volatility, like that is on the tip of everybody's tongue right now, and certainly all of those leading to potential financial setbacks. One thing that we have to do, though, is we have to remind ourselves that we can only manage what's within our control, right? And that's so easy to say, right? But part of preparing is to know the things that we can't control, and things like the weather, those market prices, different unforeseeable setbacks. We manage those differently, and we have a sense of more a bit of acceptance and understanding that we know that these things happen. Farmers, this isn't their first rodeo. They've likely grown up in the sector since they were just little, and it's maybe something they've taken on and taken over. So they've seen these things happen before, they've seen trends, so they adapt. Right. And adaptability is a very key kind of characteristic that we see in farmers as well. So instead of resisting that, we learn more to respond. And farmers are known for building in buffer time, creating contingency plans, being patient in times when that's needed. We have to try not to, as hard as it is to say, to waste energy on trying to change the unchangeable. So we know that farmers are good problem solvers and can pivot when needed. So different ways to prepare for those challenges. When we are considering weather as being one of those challenges, we can look at monitoring those regional weather trends, use forecasting tools. Technology is infusing itself in the agriculture sector in so many different ways. And just one of the ways we can look at is using those tools for forecasting and the apps and everything that we have at our fingertips, right? Diversifying your crop types also may be something that we can use to navigate weather concerns, and also staggering those planting schedules, right? So that will stagger our harvest in that same kind of mindset as well. One of the things that we can try to avoid as best we can when it comes to equipment failures is doing pre-season maintenance checks, right? So if we're coming into planting season, let's prep for that far in advance. Let's do those that preventative maintenance before we get into those major seasons of planting and harvesting. If we can we stock critical spare parts so we're not waiting and have this downtime? Maybe some of the fixes we can do is train some of our staff on basic, simple repairs and maybe how to troubleshoot, right? So again, we're trying to reduce this downtime. So what tools can we give to those who are operating our equipment to be able to potentially fix the small things? Maybe it's establishing service agreements with local mechanics and they have rapid response. We know that there's mobile units out there as well. Maybe they can get to you instead of you getting to them to fix your equipment. So know that ahead of time. Have your numbers ahead of time. Being prepared and planned is all part of that. And also, if we do have a down piece of equipment, what is our backup plan? Again, part of that contingency plan is knowing if this happens, we know it could happen, that where can we rent this equipment from? Who can we share equipment with? Who can I grab that from so that I can keep going? Because we know that time is of the essence in some things. But so having those strategies and those plans helps us for sure. When we look at labor shortages, you know, that's it's tough, right? Getting good, competent individuals to be on our crews, building those strong relationships with our crews that are working for us, helps solidify that relationship, that rapport, that wanting to make sure we return for the next season, whether there's other incentives that are provided, again, for those ones that you want to try and keep and maintain and not lose them to the next farmer nearby. Cross training is big too, right? So if we lose an employee is sick, maybe they leave our organization, maybe it's then who do we have to fill that critical role? So cross training is something that we should consider. And also, there is potential to explore those opportunities to automate some certain work if we need to. So.
That's great. I really liked what you said. Like you can only manage what is in your control and how important preparation and planning is so that you have some things in your control that you can deal with what happens
Yeah,
no matter what happens.
absolutely.
So that's so great, like planning and preparation. Very key. So next question is, how can farmers build practical strategies to cope with unexpected adversity, such as weather delays or equipment breakdowns without sacrificing safety?
Yeah, this is there's a critical part to this question is at the very end, you said, without sacrificing safety. And I think we've all kind of been in that position where we feel rushed and stressed and time constrained. So do we cut corners? Do we, get a little complacent and not put our full focus on safety when it comes to when emergencies kind of come up or like you say, we're in crunch time. So again, I kind of come back to this idea of what can we do ahead of time? So what can we do to prepare? Again, it's not a matter, a lot of the things that we see, a lot of the challenges that come up are not new to a farmer. We can foresee that there's going to be some challenges with the season. So, how best to prepare? So, again, when we look at those contingency plans, looking at those flexible harvest schedules with those buffer days, maybe we prioritize different fields based on the crop vulnerability or the weather conditions. We need to get into this field first, or we know that this field's going to be more wet. We can hit this field first. Farmers are very good at adapting to that. Equipment breakdowns, certainly those contingency plans, as I mentioned before. But another thing is training, right? Training is so critical when it comes to safety as a whole. There's a lot of things that we do in safety, but certainly we need to train those individuals who are working on our crews. So training them first and foremost on the hazards that they're going to face. And there's a lot of hazards that a worker faces in the course of their duties, whether it's the equipment they're using, maybe it's the safe handling of the animals, maybe they're using some chemicals that they need to be trained on. What are my PPE requirements? How do I respond in an emergency? Right? So the training is critical. It also supports an employer and supervisor's due diligence at the end of the day, too, when it comes to making sure that a worker knows those hazards that they face, but to also ensure that our workers are competent in the tasks that they are asked to carry out. And training helps with that, right? I talked about those cross training of staff before to kind of cover those absences. So that kind of comes part of that training piece as well. And when you're preparing for your season to come, build the training into your plan, right? This becomes part of that whole preparation piece again. So whether we have seasonal workers coming in, well, before you can even get in the tractor, jump in the combine, use this equipment, handle these chemicals, you're getting training. So we will just build that in and we know that your first day on site, there's some training we need to do with you, some form of an orientation. For workers that you have that are around for maybe they are full time, they're with you for the entire year, you can maybe build that training in the off season, right? So when you have some time to breathe, when you can bring them into the shop and show them some things and make sure we're retraining, maybe doing some refreshers on some things. So always keep that in your mind. We can, as long as we are thinking about this ahead before the season starts, it allows us to plan that. And, you know, if training doesn't happen on this day because an emergency has come up, that's okay. I've built in some time. We can bump this to another day. That's all that planning piece, right? When we're certainly making sure that our workers are competent to do the job. It doesn't mean, though, that a supervisor or the employer or those kind of who are leading the crew or the team then can just go, okay, workers are good. We've trained them. They know all the things. There still needs to be an element of supervision. And I respect that an employer, a supervisor can't be with their workers all the time. But those people in those kind of supervisory positions need to be champions, be role models for health and safety, right? If I see someone not wearing their PPE who's in a leadership position, they're my employer, they're my lead hand, whatever that may be, why do I have to wear it? Right? So it is a bit of monkey see, monkey do. And if health and safety is a priority for your farm, for your organization, then we all walk the walk and talk the talk. And when we see that someone isn't following those health and safety expectations, then there is that monitoring piece from the supervisor or employer, and then kind of that enforcement piece to say, hey, just a reminder, we need to wear this PPE, we need to operate our equipment this way, make sure that you're doing your circle checks before you jump on your equipment, whatever that may be. Okay, that we are making sure that that's the expectation, that we're all kind of toeing the line when it comes to that piece. So supervision does become part of that. And when it becomes just innate and inherent in how our workplace functions, it just becomes the rule. It's just what we do. This is how we function. Safety doesn't take a back seat to the other tasks that we're doing. Another thing that we consider here too is kind of having really good communication methods and practices. So having reliable devices for employees to communicate if there's changes, when they need help in case of an emergency, having information and an ability to communicate all helps. So think about it. If we're in the middle of a field, we have poor reception. Are there certain devices? Are there ways? And to Kristin's point earlier, right? Who knows we're here, right? So making sure that we've got that. Maybe it's two-way radios. Maybe I've seen many farms use mobile apps or group messaging types of ways to communicate with the teams, cell phones and things like that. So just have those kind of methods in place, have backup chargers, in your equipment or around the shop or the barn so that we can make sure that we are always having a charged device. We start in the morning with a full charge, and to Kristin's point, our day goes haywire, and now we're 12, 14, 16 hours in, and now my phone is no charge left. So put those backup chargers in places where you can get them, you can access them, and you've always got a charged device. So when we prepare, it definitely reduces that temptation to rush, to cut corners, and to take those risks we wouldn't normally do when we're not feeling that pressure of time or those financial burdens or shortages with staff. So those are things that we can do to prepare, kind of looking at it from the sense of, well, what can we do when we're in the moment? Like, I thought I prepared. I thought I had my T's dot, my I's crossed, but now something's, has hit the fan. So in the moment, what we try to do, and it's a different method or an approach that we promote for the agricultural sector because it's very simple and anyone can do it. It's called just the stop, think, act approach. So when you're coming up on a task that maybe you've not done for a long time or something has gone wrong, we stop and we ask some questions and we say, well, what could go wrong here? If something did go wrong, how bad could it be? And has something changed? So that stop then makes us think, do I clearly understand this task? Am I physically and mentally ready? And do I have the right tools and equipment? Once we've thought that through, we can then act and either make the right decision to make it safe, reduce those risks, and use the right tools and procedures. So this not only can be used, this simple approach from an employer or supervisor, but workers too. So it's definitely an approach that we like to promote. And then, once we've stopped and using this process, we then consider what is within our control. What's outside of our control? When we enter that think stage, then we begin to accept what it is that we can't control, right? And we start to focus on addressing the stressors that you can control and find innovative and creative solutions to improve those efficiencies and reduce those stressors. So it is something that we do like to try and say in the moment, do that stop, think, act approach. It doesn't take long. It's minutes, right? To be able to process what it is my next move should be.
That's great. Thank you for that. I really enjoyed how you talked about championing health and safety and training. Like training is just so important. I know like us at CASA, you guys and our provincial partners across the country all have lots of courses and resources on our websites that people can take, as you said, in the off season. Or when they're doing their cross training, which we have a question about cross training we'll answer later on, or you could do it now if you want, or we can save it for later. But
Sure, we can take it later. That's
yeah,
fine.
okay, we'll take that one later. So yeah, it's just
Good.
so important, like the training and our, as I said, our websites and our provincial partners, like you guys across the country have some great resources on their sites as well.
Mhm.
So your next question for you, Nicole, is in your experience, how can farmers turn difficult harvest seasons into opportunities for learning and strengthening resilience for the future?
Mm. Yeah, so as I said before, like farmers growing up in rural Ontario and being on a farm and, you know, friends who their parents were farmers, you're just immersed in that kind of culture. And farmers definitely are some of the most resilient people I know. But the idea here and the thought about strengthening our resilience should really pivot to controlling the hazards that harm our mental health that are certainly within our control. So I give you an example, right? So we've seen this before where we have an instance where we've got an automotive manufacturer, okay, they've got a line where they're building they have a pickup truck assembly line. And workers are required to lift, the 15-pound running boards every few minutes to have them installed on the new truck. So the company began to notice that, a number of workers were getting back injuries because they're lifting these very repetitive, right, heavy. So what do they do? Well, we get a mechanical device to help with that heavy lifting. Makes a lot of sense. Let's get to the root of what's causing these injuries. My point being that is we didn't give that worker a gym membership. We didn't tell them to go work out or give them workout equipment to go work out at home to become physically stronger, physically more resilient, to be able to handle that manual labor. So the company went to the root of the problem to fix it. And the same truly needs to happen for those hazards that cause mental harm. We can't expect to go to training to become more resilient, right? Or just say, take some time from work and then return to the exact same situation or environment that caused the distress or the harm in the first place, and then think that we're going to get a different outcome. So the idea here is that we need to address those sources of harm. We can't just go, oh, well, that's kind of the way it is. And certainly there's an element of that, right? It comes back to the things that we can control and we can't control, right? We do not live in a stress-free world for anything that we do, but how prepared can we be? So farmers can take opportunities to look at the past season and identify those sources of mental harm, look to implement strategies to make improvements for the next season. So let's stop when we do have that downtime and go, what went really well this season? Let's jot that down. What slowed us down? Maybe what saved us, or what was a complete surprise. I didn't expect that to happen. Write those down while they're fresh in your head. And what this does, it helps to set your plan and strategy up for the next season. So you can also keep track of that data during the season, right? So in the moment, keep record of when things go sideways, whether it's weather patterns or equipment failures or labor gaps or crop losses, whatever that is. This can identify patterns and assist in building better contingency plans. And the other thing you can do too is learn and train through experience. So things happen and we're all going to maybe work at this together. So use those season's challenges to build team confidence and problem solving skills. Debrief with your crew. What did we learn? What would we do differently if this were to happen again in future? And it's important to empower your workers to suggest those improvements. They are the ones that are in the moment. They're seeing it, they're working in it. They're going to have great suggestions for making things better, for improving things. So it's important for sure to kind of work through those together. You can also lean on the farming community itself and share those experiences. I'm sure many of you do this. Talk to neighboring farmers or different agribusinesses and advisors and say, what did you guys face for struggles or challenges this year and how did you guys cope? Sharing those stories ignites new ideas for combating these challenges in the future. Maybe we lean on one another and remember certainly that you're not in it alone and that you're not the only one that's facing these challenges. So it is important to network. And I know farmers do that well for sure. Yep.
That's great. I love that idea of empowering your workers in the community to share like what they learn and what they see. It's just so important to, like you said, use what other people see instead of just reinventing the wheel yourself, right? Like it's great to share those common experiences. So I have one more question for you, Nicole. So what role do mental health and well-being play in resilience at harvest? And what resources or practices do you recommend to support farmers?
Yeah, so it's definitely important to recognize as well as champion the necessity of taking care of yourself and your team. I can't stress that enough. When you are in a poor state of mental health, it has a negative impact on your ability to lead, to focus, to organize, to even just feel motivated, to be alert. And that's just to name a few. So we do have to prioritize taking care of ourselves mentally as well as physically and work together to break down the stigma of mental health in order to help those who are suffering in silence. There is a great deal of attention, effort, emphasis being placed on mental health in agriculture, which I'm so happy to see. Farmers that I have spoken to are starting to feel more comfortable in voicing the struggles and challenges that they face on the farm and how this does impact their mental health. The numbers are staggering for agriculture when it comes to mental health, suicide rates, and all that specifically. So they acknowledge that things are not easy and that it's okay to say, actually, I'm not okay today. We have to get to a place where it's okay to say, I'm not okay today, um, and ask for help, someone you trust. Farmers are resilient, but they are still human, and they are not robots running on autopilot. So I think that there also is an appreciation right now for that increased attention the agriculture sector is getting with respect to mental health to almost let farmers feel safe to really talk about what's going on. It's like the elephant in the room is finally starting to exit. Um, it's that cloud that overhangs that it's like, should I say something? Will I be perceived as weak or and not strong and unable to do? Not at all. Not at all. We can only handle as much as we can handle, and we need to be real and we need to be honest about it. We don't prioritize or maybe see physical health and mental health in the same light. And it's a matter of making sure that we appreciate and understand and accept that our mental health is just as important as our physical health. When it is crunch time, certainly fatigue and stress can set in, which also in leads to accidents. And that was just brought up in the previous discussion with Kristin, and you mentioned it too. It was found and noticed that one of the sons on the crew was getting tired. We need to stop in that moment and say, "You're done. You've been in the field far too long, and it's time we need to call that out." Look at rotating shifts if possible, making sure we're providing those rests and breaks and ensuring everyone gets in those meals and the hydration, exactly what Kristin was talking about earlier. It's also so important to be realistic in your expectations. You know what you can handle and what you can't and what's realistic. Don't expect more of yourself or others than what's real to be able to handle. Also, taking that time again to stay connected, making sure family, friends, fellow farmers talk to those who understand your challenges. There are networking groups available. Also, making sure that we do set those boundaries between work and personal time. I get that when it's go time, right? Harvest season, planting season, whatever that may be with your farm, it's a busy, busy time of year. But we look forward to when that we come down into the valley and we do have that time to be able to breathe and to maybe look forward to getting away, taking some time to vacation, whatever that looks like, whatever it is that you love to do, read, listen to music, go for a walk. Everyone recharges their battery in a different way. And it's important to make sure that you take the time to recharge your battery, because if you're not okay, your farm will not thrive without the right people at the helm to be able to make sure things are running as they should. So be mindful also when you're starting to feel stressed or starting to feel anxious, understand what those signs and symptoms are that you start to feel and experience. Certainly allow yourself to feel that. Say, okay, I feel and understand kind of what's going on here. I may not be my best today. And then use those strategies, those coping mechanisms, those tools to help, to help you through those times. Um, there are some wonderful resources available specific to the ag sector, which I think is very important, right? Ag is so unique in the sense that we want to talk to the people who understand the challenges and strifes that a farmer is facing. So let's go. There have been resources created for this particular sector, and Canada-wide, there is one called Do More Agriculture Foundation. So they offer peer support, workshops, awareness campaigns, and we also have Talk Suicide Canada. So we dial that number 988 and support for anyone in crisis or is concerned about someone else. So there may be other certainly Canada-wide resources as well, but those are just a couple to mention. Because I am from Ontario, I know Ontario does have the Farmer Wellness Initiative. So they're providing Ontario farmers, families, employees, as well as those employees' spouses and dependents with free mental health counseling specific to those unique challenges that can be experienced by that agricultural community. And they also have created this network called the Guardian Network, which is a volunteer suicide prevention program. Guardians are equipped with strategies and tools to identify the signs of mental distress and then react to farmers at risk and connect individuals with those appropriate crisis resources. So, again, I encourage everyone to look into what are our specific resources for your own province or territory to make sure that you've got those resources. And that's the other key part of this is when we're in a state of crisis, that's really not when we want to be going and looking for the support or figuring out. We want to maybe know what supports we have available to us ahead of time before we get into this state.
That's great. Thank you so much. I was just going to share with everyone, CASA has this great mental health hub as well on our website that we try to list all the different mental health organizations and resources for the AIG committee across the country. That is on our website at casa.ca, or casa/acsa.ca for everyone that want to check that out. So we're almost wrapped up with time, but I think I have time for one more quick question if Nicole and Kristin want to answer that one fast. Before we move on to the audience questions. For those of you that aren't aware, WSPS produces a podcast called the Farm Safety Roundup. The podcast series focuses on important conversations with WSPS's team of ag specialists to help keep farmers, their families, and their workers safe. Nicole and Kristin have both been contributors to this podcast, and which is what we kind of like based our questions on today on their previous podcast episodes. So, questions for both of you if you want to answer it pretty quickly because we are running out of time and want to get to those audience questions. So, looking back on the episodes of the podcast so far, which impact do you hope the podcast has had, and how does it support broader farm safety efforts during busy seasons like harvest?
Thanks, Megan. Short and sweet, the podcast is an example of a resource for this sector. The Farm Safety Roundup has made some meaningful contribution to farm, family, and rural safety across Canada in that it is convenient. Listeners can join at any time from any place. It's 15 minutes or so for each of the episodes, and conversations are with individuals with ag expertise on topics that are quite relevant for the sector and often timely, like conversation about road safety at the point within the year that we would expect to be out on the road. Certainly, on behalf of WSPS and Nicole and I specifically, we hope the podcast is supporting and raising awareness of not only the challenges and hazards, but the resources and solutions that are available for this sector, providing that essential information not only to those who farm, but those who may intersect with those who farm to improve that appreciation and respect, certainly for the hard work that is done by individuals within this sector. And we'll keep it that short and sweet, Megan.
Perfect. Okay, so we do have a couple of minutes for some audience questions and answers. So we have one come in that is, what is cross-training? I believe you talked about this, Nicole.
Yeah, for sure. So cross training is just in the sense that if I can operate this particular piece of equipment, whether it is your tractor or whatnot. Is this someone we could also train to use the harvester, the combine? Is there other equipment that we potentially could train them on? By cross training, if we only have one employee or two employees who can run the harvester or the combine, if that person is to be absent or sick or leaves the company, then who's there to do it? We don't want to waste downtime in retraining that individual. So having an individual to be able to do multiple things, multiple tasks and roles helps for if there is downtime with other staff.
Great, thank you. Is there any other questions, anyone? Oh, there we go. A theme we've heard throughout the conference is the importance of storytelling in farm safety. Nicole mentioned that networking and talking is so important. So how has storytelling and listening helped reach more producers with the podcast?
I'll
Kristin,
begin, and Nicole,
okay.
please do add to this thought. The podcast is a mechanism to share those stories. So again, often with our co-host from Real Ag, we share some of those experiences of our own, why this topic is so important, and then certainly the share of that information from those who listen, who can then create that same story in their own network. We hope means not only the number of specific listeners have been impacted by those hazards and solutions, but have taken that back to their networks to share and say, hey, I heard Nicole talk about mental health and agriculture on the podcast or at the CASA session, and there was some mention about this 988 number. Let's look into that a little bit further. We hope that it is just the beginning of the storytelling at the mechanism of the podcast or sessions such as this, and really any of our interactions. We hope that it passes on from one to the next through their networks.
That's great. Thank you. Oh, one more question. This will be our last one. So Nicole mentioned there are networks for farmers to connect with one another. Can you give an example of that? Are those online or local in person?
Yeah, like one thing I think of, like, and this is because this is only very local to where I am, but an ag organization where you have members, like we have the CFFO, like Christian Farmers Federation of Ontario. You may have farmers who are a member of that. They have an AGM. They also have regional meetings where they get together on a monthly or a kind of quarterly type of basis, and they'll come in and they'll talk about, whatever the most pressing kind of, you know, instance or whatever's kind of come up in their region or their area. So I do think it's very kind of local based in some cases where you may be able to network and find those organizations, but two, and maybe looking at I've looking further into maybe some of those Canada-wide, there may be an opportunity to kind of network with the other kind of resources that are available there. Kristin, I don't know if you're aware of any others.
Yeah, well, I'll add somewhat generally. So as you mentioned, organizations that are farmer organizations such as CFFO or OFA, Ontario Federation of Agriculture in Ontario, events such as this though. So stay connected, subscribe to news from organizations such as CASA or perhaps your local farmer organization to understand when are their conferences and sessions available. And I will only speak for our organization for the moment, but quite often health and safety organizations that do provide support to agriculture will also have safety connection or networking type of events. So it does take a bit of a prompt by you to understand what is available in your jurisdiction, but wide variety and opportunity, certainly.
For sure. Yesterday, we actually heard about Ag Talk from the Do More Agriculture Foundation, which is a great place for farmers to network about mental health and more as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that was great. That really ties into our yesterday's presentation. So thank you for that question and those answers, everyone. So seeing no further questions and our time is up, we will wrap up this morning's session. So thank you so much, Kristin and Nicole, for joining us this morning. It was great to get your insights into road safety and resilience during this important time of year. Their contact information is on the screen right now if you guys have any further questions for Kristin and Nicole. Reminder, we will be back at 1 o'clock Central Time for a presentation from Craig Lester on navigating the evolving world of traditional media and urban information landscapes. The Zoom link you were provided will be the same link for the afternoon session, or you can keep the Zoom on and listen to the wonderful playlist we have going. So thank you all, and we'll see you this afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.